The Baltimore Orioles have been awesome this year. They've been a consistently great team all season long, have a really fun group of players, and a bright future ahead. I mean, there really hasn't been anything negative to talk about regarding the Orioles in 2023. Seems kind of strange to say regarding a team that is just a couple years removed from losing 110 games, but it's true. The Orioles are damn good now. There's been so much positivity surrounding the franchise, and that was just too much for the owner, John Angelos. This man really said, Nah, all this good and positive Orioles talk is too much. I gotta spice things up a bit. I gotta get people angry at this team, and in particular, me. And that's exactly what Angelos did. Out of seemingly nowhere, news came out that Orioles play-by-play announcer Kevin Brown had been removed and suspended from the team's broadcast, and the reason why will have you questioning everything. The terrible incident that took place, the one that resulted in leaving owner John Angelos with no other choice than to suspend Brown, happened on July 23rd in St. Petersburg, Florida at the Trop. The Orioles were taking on the Rays, and in the pregame show, play-by-play announcer Kevin Brown went on air, and I'm sorry, this is really hard to talk about. It's pretty intense. Kevin Brown went on air and stated, "Facts. How dare he?" What Brown said was that the Orioles had won more games at Tropicana Field in 2023 than the last 3 years combined, with the point being that the Orioles haven't been good against the Rays at the Trop in recent years, but are doing better now. Simple as that. That's all Brown said. Seems normal, right? And if you don't believe me and think there's more to it, and trust me, you have every reason to be skeptical, here is exactly what Kevin Brown said on air that night.
For the Orioles, Brandon Hyde has felt like this has been maybe the toughest ballpark to play in, but the Orioles have a chance to do something special today. They've already clinched at least a split in the series, winning 2 of the first 3, and they could pick up a series win behind Tyler Wells today. It's been a minute. The Orioles split a 2-gamer with the Rays in June. They had lost their last 15 series here at Tropicana Field. You have to go back to when our now colleague Brad Brock picked up the win in the series finale, June 25th, 2017, the last time the Orioles won a series here at St. Pete. Already got 3-2 at the Trop this year after winning 3 of 18 the previous 3 years combined. It is a stark difference, Ben, and it is not a bad Rays team. It's not like all of a sudden the Rays became slouches in the American League East. They've led this division every day, but now 2, and the Orioles once again are back alone in first place.
Is there anything he stated in the clip I just showed you that remotely warrants any criticism, let alone a suspension? And on top of that, what Brown talked about that night regarding the Orioles' record at the Trop over the last few years compared to 2023, it was all in the game notes, which are put together by the team public relations staff. So even if he said something egregious, it's not even his fault because he didn't even make those notes to begin with. But that's beside the point, because nothing Brown said was bad anyway. According to sources, ownership didn't like that Brown pointed this out on the broadcast, believing it made them sound cheap. It made them sound cheap, claims the ownership. The same ownership that has the Orioles set as the 28th most expensive team in baseball. I'm not making this up, I promise you. I can't believe I'm saying what I'm saying right now, but it's true. The Orioles ownership is that triggered and thin-skinned over a factual statement being made, and with that, they have made an enemy out of everyone. Multiple broadcasts of other teams publicly came out to criticize what the Orioles ownership did to their broadcaster. The Mets play-by-play announcer Gary Cohen had this to say regarding the situation.
You draped yourself in humiliation when you fired John Miller, and you're doing it again. Horrendous decision by the Orioles. I don't know what they were thinking.
Dave O'Brien in the Red Sox broadcast chimed in.
It was ridiculous. And you're stating the facts. I mean, they haven't won there, and they got a great team, and hopefully they break it.
Somebody didn't like the facts very much.
White Sox play-by-play guy Jason Benetti then mocked the Orioles.
You know, they're done with the Orioles for the year, the team in first place in the AL East, but they actually played Baltimore pretty well. They were 6-7 against the Orioles this year, so they lost 7 times, but they did beat Baltimore 6 times, which I hope I don't get suspended by the Orioles for saying that.
The Angels broadcast with Wayne Randazzo also had something to say.
Sometimes facts are facts, and we have to sit here and talk about them, whether they are pretty or not. We got a guy sitting a few booths down, the Hall of Famer John Miller, who went through that there almost 30 years ago, and certainly our best wishes go out to Kevin Brown of the Baltimore Orioles.
And longtime Yankees play-by-play guy and radio host Michael Kay gave his thoughts.
They should be ashamed of themselves because not only was what Kevin said in the Oriole notes that night, but it was on a graphic, which means that it was planned. So if you're going to be so thin-skinned to suspend Kevin Brown, then you have to suspend the entire Oriole truck, the producer, director, graphics. You have to suspend all of them because they're all complicit in this. And if John Angelos, the owner of the Orioles, didn't like that, then he's thin-skinned, he's unreasonable, and he should actually get a call from Rob Manfred, the commissioner of baseball, because it's unconscionable that you would actually suspend a really good broadcaster for no reason whatsoever. He didn't do anything wrong. And you know that music that starts playing in the cut that you played, Peter? That means a graphic has come up. So the graphic had already been printed out, and you said this earlier. This is not how it works. Kevin Brown doesn't say it, and somebody who's running graphics in the truck could put together a graphic in 2 seconds. That's put together an hour before that happens. And you're going to suspend this guy for saying that, which wasn't even negative. Again, then everybody in the Oriole PR department has to be suspended. It was in their notes. So, of course, we look forward to Kevin coming back. But you embarrassed the guy for no reason. And, most importantly, you embarrassed yourself. What you did is disgraceful to the business. Disgraceful. Fans of teams should be lucky when their announcers are allowed to be critical. And that wasn't even critical, Peter. I believe that was complimentary of the Orioles.
It's so crazy.
It's such a small look. Oh, small man.
So nobody else seems to think what the Orioles did is normal. Obviously, it's not something that anybody would think would be an issue, yet here we are. And this isn't the first time the Orioles ownership has done something like this. In fact, they have a history of this kind of behavior, something Mets announcer Gary Cohen alluded to. Back in 1996, the Orioles didn't offer a contract to their play-by-play announcer at the time, John Miller, because he was not enough of a homer, meaning he wasn't totally biased for the Orioles. This is a literal quote from John Angelos in 1996, quote-unquote, "They should be an advocate for the team. They've got to bleed a little bit for the Orioles." And John Miller, he didn't feel that you could broadcast the games that way. Miller has since gone on to do just fine, better actually, becoming the San Francisco Giants play-by-play guy and has been for the last 27 years. There's also a much more recent incident that happened with the former Orioles PA announcer, which is the voice you hear when at the ballpark announcing the players, Ryan Wagner, when the team decided to fire him. Why? Because of tweets. No tweets that were political or controversial in any way, or in anyone's opinion, but rather things regarding the Orioles, something the team reportedly had actually warned him about in the past. Here's an exact part of an article written by The Athletic on the situation when it happened. However, Wagner on Saturday confirmed an earlier story in The Athletic that previous tweets of his were among the reasons for the dismissal. He would not discuss specifics, but he stressed the tweets in question were not political in nature. His political views seemed to align, for the most part, with the Orioles' liberal-leaning ownership.
The first step to doing extremely well is for this person, this individual who is in the office of the presidency, to retract all of these outrageous things that have been said and simply do one thing: apologize.
Angelos was asked if there were plans to invite Trump for an Orioles first pitch. The executive vice president of the O's wants an apology first.
Until that happens, it wouldn't be my preference to have the president come throw a pitch.
And that he has not removed any tweets from his timeline in 2021, which was the year he was fired. And according to a source, 2 tweets that Wagner put out on April 7th, 2021 was the last straw. So what did Wagner tweet about that got the Orioles ownership so angry, leading them to make the decision to fire Wagner? He tweeted about Brett Gardner and how well he's done against the Orioles, later tweeting out, "Seriously?" after the Orioles failed to get Gardner out on a grounder to first, in which reliever Cesar Valdez was late in covering the base. That's it. That's literally all Wagner ever did or said. And he was canned. So now, knowing what happened to John Miller back in 96 and then Ryan Wagner in 2021, what's currently happening to Kevin Brown shouldn't really shock any of us. This is how the Orioles ownership is, out here operating like North Korea. It still doesn't make it any less appalling though. I mean, there's literally no valid way to argue in support of what John Angelos and the Orioles ownership did here. Nothing. Maybe you can claim there's something we don't know and that Kevin Brown was removed from the broadcast because of something more serious he did, but if that was the case, we would have heard about it by now. All the reports and past signs of context show that this is actually on point with how the Orioles higher-ups are, and frankly, it's wrong. There's no other way around it. It's just wrong, and incredibly stupid, brain dead. I just can't even seem to wrap my head around it. Brown will apparently be back in the broadcast booth soon, so that's good news, but it doesn't make this situation any less ridiculously dumb. Let me make something clear, though, to everyone watching. I don't want this story to make you feel differently about the Orioles as a team. This entire ridiculous situation is about the ownership and the higher-ups, nothing else. The players, of course, have nothing to do with it, and I bet you right now they probably feel how everyone else does about the situation. There's no way the guys in that clubhouse are sitting there pumping their fists in support of their owner. No chance. So this Orioles team, one that has been incredible and fun to watch and see be successful in 2023, deserves all the love they can get. The ownership may be thin-skinned, stupid, and operate terribly, but don't let this change your opinion and view on the actual team, the players. They're great. But as for John Angelos and the rest of the ownership, congratulations, the entire world hates you now.